Welcome back to our read aloud of Despereaux. We are getting into the meat of the end of the story here. We're really learning about what is making these characters tick. We saw Despereaux last time have a dream about a knight in armor, and the knight took off his helmet and there was nothing there. And Despereaux said, "No, the knight doesn't exist. It's all for nothing." But I think there's probably a different lesson there. Despereaux. I think the lesson is really the knight is you. That's my prediction. We've got the next chapter coming up here. It's called What Mig Carried. And if you'll recall, Mig and Roscoe have met, the rat has met the girl who wants to be the princess, and he said, "I can make that happen." We also know that Roscoe wants revenge for the incident where he fell in the soup. Chapter 36, What Mig Carried. And while the mouse slept, Roscoe put his terrible plan into effect. Would you like to hear, reader, how it all unfolded? The story is not a pretty one. There is violence in it, and cruelty. But stories that are not pretty have a certain value too, I suppose. Everything, as you well know, having lived in this world long enough to have figured out a thing or two for yourself, cannot always be sweetness and light. Listen, this is how it happened. First, the rat finished once and for all the job he had started long ago. He chewed through Gregory's rope all the way through it, so that the jailer became lost in the maze of the dungeon. Late at night, when the castle was dark, the serving girl Miggery Sow climbed the stairs to the princess's room. In her hand, she carried a candle. Okay, so I'm thinking about this situation. Gregory the jailer is no longer able to find his way around in the dungeon, and Miggery is climbing to the princess's room with a candle. Okay, I have no idea where this plan is going. I'm really curious as a reader how those things are going to connect. So I'm looking in the story to help me understand where do those pieces come together. In her hand, she carried a candle, and in the pockets of her apron were two very ominous things. In the right pocket, hidden in case they should encounter anyone on the stairs, was a rat with a spoon on his head and a cloak of red around his shoulders. So, reader, I can infer that that rat is Roscoe because that is how he dresses. In the left pocket was a kitchen knife, the same knife that Miggery Sow had used to cut off the tail of a certain mouse. And a rat and a knife. Those are ominous. Those are things that are promising something bad. These were the things, a rat and a knife and a candle, that Mig carried with her as she climbed up the stairs. "Gore," she shouted to the rat. "It's dark, ain't it?" "Yes, yes," whispered Roscoe from her pocket. "It is quite dark, my dear." "When I'm princess," began Mig. "Shh," said Roscoe. "May I suggest that you keep your glorious plans for the future to yourself? And may I further suggest that you keep your voice down to a whisper? We are, after all, on a covert mission. Do you know how to whisper, my dear?" "I do," shouted Mig. "Then please," said Roscoe, "please institute this knowledge immediately." "Gore," whispered Mig. "All right." "Thank you," said Roscoe. "Do I need to review with you again our plan of action?" "I got it all straight right here in my head," whispered Mig, and she tapped the side of her head with one finger. "How comforting," said Roscoe. "Perhaps, my dear, we should go over it again one more time just to be sure." "Well," said Mig, "we go into the princess's room, and she will be sleeping and snoozing and snoring, and I will wake her up and show her the knife and say, 'If you does not want to get hurt, princess, you must come with me.'" "And you will not hurt her," said Roscoe. "No, I won't, because I want her to live so that she can be my lady-in-waiting and when I become the princess." "Exactly," said Roscoe. "That will be her divine comeuppance." "Gore," whispered Mig. "Yes, her divine comeuppance." Mig had, of course, no idea what divine comeuppance meant, but she very much liked the sound of it, and she repeated it over and over to herself until Roscoe said, and then, continued Mig, "I tells her I get out of her princess bed and come with me on a little journey." Ha, said Roscoe, a little journey. That is right. Ha, I love the understatement of that phrase. A little journey. Oh, it will be a little journey indeed. It will. And then, said Mig, who was now coming to her favorite part of the plan, we take her down to the deep downs and we gives her some long lessons in how to be a serving girl, and we gives me some short lessons in how to be a princess. And when we is all done studying up, we switch places. I gets to be princess and she gets to be the maid. Or, reader, this is the very plan that Roscoe presented to Mig when he first met her. It was, of course, a ridiculous plan. No one would ever, not for a blind minute, mistake Mig for the princess or the princess for Mig. But Miggery Sow, as I pointed out to you before, was not the sharpest knife in the drawer. And reader, she too wanted so desperately to become princess. She wanted, oh, how she wanted. And it was because of this terrible wanting that she was able to believe in Roscoe's plan with every ounce of her heart. The rat's real plan was, in a way, more simple and more terrible. He intended to take the princess to the deepest, darkest part of the dungeon. He intended to have Mig put chains on the princess's hands and her feet, and he intended to keep the glittering, glowing, laughing princess there in the dark